Hi, my name is Bashir Fancy. I'm one of the founders and president at BIZTEK Professional Association of Canada, or BTPAC, as a lot of people know and makes sense, btpac.org. I'm very fortunate today that we have a pretty eminent guest with us. Dr. Mohamed El Guindy actually is coming to us live from Cairo right now. He's based in the Middle East. He's been in Europe and all sides. And I've known him for many years, about 15 years. We've done some stuff together. He is one of the top authorities in technology in the Middle East. And not only that, even when it comes to cybersecurity and stuff like that. So he's one of his roles. Of course, he's involved with IEEE, and he's the person who heads the association there too. But his role, even a bigger role, is the fact that he's under United Nations trends law enforcement on cyber terrorism, right? Now, we're going to be covering that on July 29th summit, so don't forget to come there. But today, what we thought, we'll make it a short, a different type of thing where he can have some free flow and we can talk about it. But one of the questions I want to get right out of the way after, now that, so welcome, Dr. Guindy, El-Guindi. It's very nice to have you. Right?
Thank you very much, my friend. You know, it's always a pleasure being with you, and we had worked together for many years, and really, it's an honor. It's an honor for me to be with you, really.
I'm very happy you're able to do, because I don't know too many people who have the type of background that you do. You're also involved in the British Computer Society, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, you mark some of the papers, and you're on the engineering side and all that, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Here's my first thing, because it's very timely. I was going to ask some other questions with it, but since it's hot off the press, and you were actually asked this morning by the television news media to speak on the subject, right? About the Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter hack. Yeah.
Twitter hack. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you know, it was really shocking yesterday to see prominent public figures' accounts to be hacked on Twitter. Something like, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and those prominent figures. It's also a verified account, so it's not easy to be hacked, like most people understand. So it was really shocking for Twitter, and suddenly Twitter, prevented everyone who has a profile verified by Twitter to not be able to send any tweets or even do anything on Twitter as a first kind of disaster control or something like this to maintain the issue. But the problem is there is no details right now on how this hack was happened. But I was thinking of something like maybe it's some kind of insider issue, maybe some kind of someone who has access to what we call in the back end the God mode communication between the platform and the people who are controlling the back end of the software. Maybe someone who is in control with the back end got hacked or something. Maybe there is some kind of connection between an external criminal or someone inside the company who managed to access to this board, because this board is very critical. I think I can remember also something happened to Uber many years ago. I think 3 or 4 years maybe. They had also some kind of God view mode inside the company, and there is some kind of employees who are managing this kind of God view systems, and accessing to this system is very, very critical, because I see there is some troubles who with people who are managing those kind of access, because there is a lot of different levels and policies that need to be in place. And if we are trying to implement something like this, because it's not easy. If someone has access to something like this, you will see something like the terrible, shocking crisis like yesterday.
So this brings a question, very interesting question. We've talked about it both together many years ago on this particular subject, that the organized crime have infiltrated corporate world. They're inside now. And that doesn't mean just the corporation, they're in even the suppliers, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And in fact, a lot of the comments I've heard today also are actually matching here that it had to have an inside component. You can't pull this thing off just from the outside.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's one thing I'd like you to comment on about the inside thing, which is not just Twitter, but a challenge everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And the second thing is, I don't know if they've outsourced anything, which creates even a bigger problem, right? So
yes, sure. Yeah, one of the cases that we can talk about regarding the insider threat is what happened in the Iranian centrifuges and with the Stuxnet case. So there was an insider who implanted the USB and the SCADA system and all those stuff we remember. The insider threat is one of the biggest issues in many corporates. It's not just Twitter or Facebook or any big corporation. Now organized crime and also state actors, they have also connections with insiders everywhere in order to infiltrate, in order to organize some kind of sophisticated attacks like this. It's not easy to do something like this without access to some kind of insider threat.
Which begs a very interesting question as to what sorts of controls are in place. And then by that, the two parts I'd like for you to kind of provide your feedback on it. One is that we know a lot of companies kind of go and talk about the fact that, oh, we got the manual here, we do this.
Yeah.
But what happens in reality is not that. So
it's different, yeah.
Yeah, completely different. So we've seen too many corporate world guys hang on saying, oh, we got this control in place, that control in place, and we do. But the truth is, every time we've done the review, we find out, no, what they do is completely different, right?
Yes.
So what's your...
some kind of, the biggest issues where we are facing when dealing with even, big businesses who some kind of, they have some kind of silos in operating these kind of complicated systems inside the organization. If you have if you have a system like this, so you should have a policy in place on implementing this system, maintaining this system, training people to use this system, measuring what's happening to this system, updating this system, maintenance of the system. There's a lot of things that need to be around the system to be fully operating successfully. But this is maybe written inside the company, but there is no enforcement to apply these things in reality. So this is the biggest issue. I think it's maybe some kind of cultural problem inside the organizations. Maybe it's a cultural problem with the people who are managing the technology, because it is not only the technology thing, it's people who are managing the technology. So as you have mentioned, always technology is just an enabler. So if you have a technology and you don't have a process and you don't have prepared people, so you don't have anything. So really, from my point of view, is if you understand, or if you are thinking that technology will solve your problem, I think you don't understand technology and they don't understand your problems. So really, you need to understand what's my problem at the first place. Do you understand your problem, and you need to put something to fix the problem? Because technology, from my point of view, also, if it doesn't fix a problem, it creates too many problems. So this is what we are seeing now with technology invading our social life. Technology is now, it's part of everyday life, and is affecting our psychological, and the mental health, and changing everything around us, because technology, is not meant to solve this kind of problems, because that's why it's created another problems in the social and the psychological, aspects, and also the economic aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you mentioned 3 or 4 very important things. You mentioned the culture aspects. You mentioned the training and the skills gaps that have been created. So let's take one at a time. Yeah. And I'll give you example, but I want to hear from you. Is that when I was fighting with a credit card fraud around the world, and you recall, in fact, we had a long conversation on this, and going back 10, 15 years, when I was speaking in Cairo.
Yes.
And the challenge was that, and I had a very big challenge, if I went to the board to talk about the fraud problems, what had happened, a lot of the banks, right, had made fraud as a cost of doing business. It's shocking how we get that problem, and then you get few people get together on security departments in the banks, or even to that extent risk management. And they would say, well, that's normal. You know, even the other guys got this fraud, and otherwise, and so they benchmark against the wrong guys, right?
Yeah.
Rather than starting with the fact that fraud should be zero, right?
Yes.
That culture of saying, yeah, our sales will increase and this will increase, but they don't realize the damage it's causing, right?
Yeah.
And you can talk to that for sure, because I'll tell you, on the credit card side of the business, credit debit, we've done review that told us that there was $10 of cost for every dollar that you wrote off on the books or that you were aware of, because the rest was distributed across the different budget center. Now, what you're looking at this, talk to that in terms of the culture and the cost that they don't realize they're actually taking on.
You know, people, especially, I can talk about the problem from Middle Eastern perspective, because I see a lot of people who are dealing with these kind of technological problems, especially cybersecurity in the Middle East. I wrote an article. I think you read this article, 2008. It was about cybercrime in the Middle East.
Yes.
I was thinking that cybercrime will be one of the biggest issues in the Middle East, and people at this time were thinking of what the heck of what is cybercrime? So cybercrime was new in the Middle East. Nobody was understanding what's the cybercrime issue. So I was talking about cybercrime. One of the things that I discussed in the paper is that there is a cultural problem when dealing with cybercrime, especially when you are dealing with technology, embedded in your critical infrastructure, and you don't understand how this technology is working, and this technology can, have some kind of vulnerabilities that you don't understand. Even people who are operating this technology don't understand, the real risk by implementing something like this in a critical infrastructure. And I was imagining that, there will be some kind of exploitation to this infrastructure and the critical infrastructure because of the culture and the people. And, there is also lack of security awareness between people, among people in the Middle East. They were very, very, very large, lack of security awareness. Also, I mentioned that also there were some kind of problem with regulation, because we had poor regulations at this time related to cybercrime, because regulation and policy is very important when dealing with cyber threats like this. I think this at this time, when I was thinking and talking to people in the Middle East, that you need to invest in security awareness, you need to invest in training your people, you need to invest in education and all those things. People looked at me, you need us to invest too much money. No, you don't understand that this is not too much money. You will pay too much money if you don't fix this problem in the first place.
That's
so
right.
This is the things that I really saw at this time, and I'm still dealing with these kind of things like right now. So it's not ended. I think that there's some kind of even bigger organizations outside of Middle East are still thinking in the same way, and you can also talk about this from your perspective in Canada and also other countries that you deal with.
It's actually the cybersecurity problems around the world are the same. I get kind of really baffled when I hear people, even in the mining industry, saying, no, we're different, or insurance business at one time. And I said, no, you're not different. The bad guys do not differentiate. They don't need to do this. Some are to make money, some are to steal your IP, right? There was attack on the Canadian entities here. They're saying it was from Russia.
Yeah, you mentioned something. Sorry for interrupting.
No.
You mentioned something. That organized crime now is trying to to have some kind of connections to profit from the things that's now going on cyberspace and all those things. I just remember the last week. Organized crime ring dismantling by the European Union, Eurojust and the Europol was working on dismantling an organized crime ring in different countries in Europe. And this is an example of how organized crime is now even building their own technology to hide from law enforcement and and the government. So this is a very amazing case.
That's actually where you touched a very interesting area. You may have heard me speak at an event on this particular part. It's relevant since you brought it up. Is that I was meeting with the government and the minister responsible for it. So we won't name the country. Anyway, they had a raid on the organized crime outfit, and they captured a lot of the stuff, right? So there was a manual. Yeah. One of the manuals, he wouldn't let me take it out of there. He said, you can read it here. And I read some of they had in that manual. And this, by the way, has continued to this day, because I was talking to a couple of guys who were involved, and they're saying they have updated, which was a 10-year plan to commit fraud, right? They had names of people, who is the senior executive in the organization, where their children go to school, who their friends are. Yeah. And they had three kind of red, like amber and green. Yeah. Green were the people they'd already compromised. Yeah. Amber they were working on, and red was the one they realized they can't crack this guy. So they go backdoor routes to try and compromise them through whatever, social media, gambling, whatever. And then they were using it. Now, I was stunned at the country and their chapter on each country's their names, as I said, the entire history, company they work for. Without going into too much detail on that, we put some people under surveillance because I knew who they were, or at least I knew the names. And it was 100% correct. They'd been compromised. Point I wanted to make here is that we know that they are doing a lot of that. You touched something very interesting, that they are developing their own technology, right? Yeah. And people do not realize, and I would like you to comment on this one, although this is the broader, not cyber terrorism, but, well, it is. You'll talk about more detail, but there's a fight going on between Huawei and United States. Yeah. Not Canada and Huawei, but USA and Huawei, because, they've gone quite far in their 5G and whatever. So regardless. Yes. So through that kind of challenge, they've decided that, okay, they won't allow Huawei to sell them stuff, at least for now. It could go away tomorrow. If there's a deal, then, we'll be holding the bag in Canada. They'll be out of the play. Yeah. Trump has said that many times already, that if all this issue will go away, we can get a good deal. So, but here's the problem. So Google then turned around and said, okay, we can't support Huawei anymore. Yeah. Because the US government directive. Now, here's my question. They've been using Google, and it's no secret that everybody knows that Google was providing data to the government. Right? Yeah. Twitter was using this information for the protests also, right? So I'd like you to comment on that part, because the reason I'm saying that, if China now will have a different, in fact, I've seen that they have been promoting their own version of, because it's Android. You can develop your own Android. Now, as they develop in their phones, US might not buy it. Canada is trapped in the middle because I think we mishandled some of the stuff there. Yeah. But what will happen if they go down that path? In North America, we'll have no view into what's going on, right? So because remember, they're now using completely different system, and they'll make sure that they protect the data. Then what happens? The problem of, I don't want to go deeply in the issues of Google, especially because there is a lot of things that connecting Google to, especially Google, to different security entities in the United States. And this is also the case with different software developers and the biggest players in technologies, especially in Silicon Valley. So this is not a secret. Even I don't know if many of us understand that one of the trade arm of the CIA, which is In-Q-Tel, it's one of the biggest investors in Silicon Valley. So, and also one of the biggest players
in the Silicon Valley. So I don't want to go deeper, but people understand what I mean. So
yeah.
So the problem is, from my point of view, is developing something with open source tools have, maybe it's double-edged, because some kind of open source tools makes it easy for security professionals to review the code, to understand how the code is working, to assess the code, to build on and to update something that you can customize to build your own system and something like this. But the other side is, if bad people understand how the system is working, this may be a challenge for people who are building on this system. So this is my concern. It's double-edged. It's not one shot. It's one bullet for good system. No, it's some kind of, you need to measure the risk at this time when you are building your own system on something based on open source. At the different level, you can see that closed system also have their own vulnerabilities that you don't understand. You don't understand how the system is working. You don't understand how the system was built, and even you don't understand what's the vulnerability in the system. So it's a black box for you. So there is some kind of risks that you need to assess before even building your system in open source, or building your system in a closed system, or buying a closed system from the beginning. So I think that it's not easy. It's not easy to decide something like this. I think based on your own assessment as a government, or also as a developer in the information technology. If you want to develop something, you need to assess the risk at the first place.
Are you finding the governments or the corporations, because you work with both, you train law enforcement, are you finding they are realizing, what is, if somebody was to ask, what's keeping them awake at night? What are the top of mind 2-3 things for them? We don't need to know the specific country or company, but generally, what is the top of mind 2 or 3 things that are worrying them?
In relation to information technology?
The technology, security, and then in terms of what can go wrong, right?
In Middle East, from my point of view, I think that Middle East is very concerned about who is controlling the technology, and they are aware of this problem. They understand that there is some kind of troubles that can cause problems for the government if they are using ready-made technology from some kind of vendors in the Western countries or on different countries around the world. But the problem is they don't have a solution, and this is what I'm always saying. It's you are just buying the system, and you are a consumer of the system. You don't even get up to be a user of the system. You are consuming systems from outside. You don't have the capacity to build system, or even to develop something based on open source or something like this. I think we lack a huge maybe expertise, and all those things need to be invested upon. We need to invest in these kind of things in the Middle East. What's the problematic for the Middle East policymakers from a point of view is that they are mainly concerned with the security issues related to terrorism and all those things related to terrorism, but in kind of also the problem of espionage and all those things, especially electronic espionage, because we have seen cases, especially in the Middle East, that's already happened. Something like hacking the radar system in Syria by Israeli forces. They have connections with people who build the system of the radar, and they was successfully invading the radar system, and the radar they were not able to see anything, and the Air Force just destroyed everything in the Syrian scene of some kind of the Israeli government said at this time that this is a nuclear facilities that Syria was about to build, and something like this. So this is already established case as some kind of security issues that you need to understand, especially from the perspective from the Middle East. If you need to use a ready-made system, you have to be aware that there is some kind of black boxes that you don't understand in these systems. And this is the thing that I'm always discussing with people in in the Middle East, especially policymakers. You need to understand what you are implementing in your critical infrastructure.
What you're buying.
Yeah. Sure.
What you're buying.
Yeah.
And what you outsource. Isn't this tied to one of the things we talked about, that they've outsourced? One of the challenges we are finding here, I've done a short video about creating jobs in Canada. Egypt and Middle East could do the same in terms of, so although we talk about Canada, the truth is it applies anywhere, is that we've outsourced the job somewhere else, right? So the technology and expertise is somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not here, because if you're going to outsource and you outsource by something cheap and say, it's just a customer service job, but then it leads to other things, because the corporate world wants to make money. That's the number one criteria for them, is shareholder value. Of course, things are turned upside down. So people and customer are at the bottom, which needs to change. Because if we were to do that, like you just said earlier, is that it's people, process, technology as an enabler. But if you want to change this paradigm to say, hang on, we need to understand what we're buying. Just because a vendor comes here and gives me shiny object and I keep buying, which we see in corporate world all the time. But it's possibly true also in government, because they got the vendor departments who are buying things. And you identified a very interesting area. People are buying things that they don't understand. Would that be a safe statement, right?
Yes, this is a safe statement. They don't understand, really.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So then that leads to a very interesting, that we may have a business that's dependent on information, on privacy of information. If you look at GDPR and stuff like that, and we don't match up to that. We did 20 years ago, but now we're nowhere near. But what that brings into question is that if we don't have the skills, or the skills gaps have been created, the culture is obviously problematic, because if we think it's okay to buy.
This is the most problematic, by the way.
It is number one problem, culture, 100%. The problem we have seen is we have tendency now. I was having a discussion, I will keep his name out, a very senior, extremely senior person.
Yeah.
And he said one of the biggest problem that he has noticed over the years, and I noticed that in a discussion with, big companies and whatever and stuff where I land, is that we tend to sometimes get carried away with a piece of paper, right? Oh, this guy's he went to this course and that course, he's done this, that, and the other. But then when you go down to talk to that person, they don't understand the reality on the ground, right? Because you can learn theory. You didn't get to, you got a very good, certifications, your PhD and all, but that's not where it built up. You built up your knowledge first and then went to this, right? So you get the other discipline. But isn't that also contributing to the problem? Because if you were to take a older person or person who's been in many years, has no degrees, diplomas, none, zero.
Yeah, we have this problem in the Middle East, and I think it's all over, but it's very obvious in the Middle East. People have all kind of certifications, even PhD, and they don't understand how to even deliver information to people, because you have PhD, but you don't understand how to lecture to people. You don't understand how to simplify information, and you have PhD and you are lecturing at university, and this is problematic. If you look at the UK framework for education, for teaching in higher education, for example, this is a framework for people who are working in teaching and delivering lectures in higher education. This is different. This is a professional qualification. This is different than having a PhD. We need to make some kind of, I can say this is standard. This is, a criteria for people who are working on the field, and what's in it for them if you want to go to a professional career and you want to go for an academic to be a researcher or something like this. And we can put this in context when we are talking about cybersecurity. You can also look at the Sophia, for example. the framework for information age, which is also developed in the UK.
Right.
So you can find some kind of criteria for people who are working in the area, the expertise needed for people to to be called a professional or this kind of titles that people hold and they don't understand anything.
By the way, I'm going to be talking a lot more about what you just talked about, but next week, okay. for good reason, and I will get you involved in that. But yes, you touched a very, very important area the way I see it. So it comes back to then that the way, so yeah, it's not like we're not talking here or attacking anybody or HR or whatever, but the problem, the way we evaluate people has changed. The way they can deal with the problem has changed. I see it in real time where security guys can't communicate with the top. They can't because they talk a very different language than the guys understand. And I've been on both sides of the fence, right? I've been on this side, and when I was on the other side making a decision to say, should I give this guy money to do this or not? And I'm saying, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. Because you can turn around, we go down, what you talk about, we go down and talk about features. Oh, it can do this, it can do that. I'm a CEO or CFO. I'm not interested in that. Are you going to save me money? Are you going to make me money? Are you going to give me increased market share? That's the language they understand, right? So it goes like that. And therefore, they don't understand. I don't know why this guy wants, because you don't have, in security, it's not easy to build a business case to say, oh, if you give me the money, I'll give you this return, because the return is in savings. There's no return per se. You prevent fraud. How do you turn on? How do you measure that I prevented 10 attacks and whatever, right? So you touched a couple of very, very interesting things there. So the way I'm looking at saying, how are we going to, the one subject you talked about, we're going to go at that next week, because that's very powerful. So, but now, given that we're seeing this problem both at the government, at the corporate level, and certainly in terms of the cyber terrorism, because really, ransomware is a big issue. It's increased by the day. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, there is a problem with the term itself, per se, the cyber terrorism, because when I talked with people from government, people from policymaker, legal perspective, for example, and we can touch also the problem of things going like this, because when you are talking with the legal people from legal background, is different when you are talking with people from technical background. So you need a common ground to come up with something that you will be able to enforce in real life. Because if you are talking about cyber terrorism from legal perspective, it's different when you are talking for cyber terrorism from a technical perspective. And I think this is the most problematic thing, is how to find the common ground to understand things better. I think you need to define things correctly before you deal with it, because this is we faced also when we dealt with cybercrime. The cybercrime treaty in Council of Europe. This is the most well-known legal framework to deal with cybercrime. But people, when people trying to get some kind of their own legal system of combating cybercrime, they faced different problems because they don't have the common ground between the technical people and also the legal people. And this is also happening right now with the cyber terrorism thing, because people don't know that cyber terrorism is not new. So if you're going back to maybe 1984, something like this, they were talking about cyber terrorism and what the meaning of cyber terrorism, because there is, and in the 90s, I think you remember the attacks happening in the United States, and people started to realize, that maybe some kind of things happening in cyberspace, and all those movies in theater like Die Hard or those things, people said, this is reality or your fiction. But you know that this kind of things started to happen on our real life. Some kind of cases like Stuxnet, all those things, the Estonian cyber attack on the infrastructure. This is a very, very prominent case that need to be studied. Also the Russian attack on, Georgia, and what was also some kind of critical infrastructure attack. And these kind of things brought to the arena to what the meaning of cyber terrorism is. This is an act of war, or this is a cyber terrorism, or this is a terrorism. So there is, a lot of definitions need to be defined correctly in first place before we deal with these things. So let's start with cyber terrorism. People need to understand, that cyber terrorism is two terms in one. So you have cyber, which is part of cyberspace, and online. You have cyberspace. We will go through cyberspace in a couple of seconds. So we have also this terrorism. So we need to define terrorism, and we need to define cyber. So we have two terms to be defined in order to define cyber terrorism. So this is not easy, because there is no internationally agreed definition of terrorism at the first place. So you don't have this. Yes, there is some kind of definitions, the security resolutions, the United Nations Council for Security Council of the United Nations. There are resolutions dealing with terrorism. Yes, something like aviation safety and all those things. Yes, this is a terrorism. But if you are talking about something like, maybe you can consider something in your country a terrorism act, and in other country is not a terrorist act. It's maybe some kind of freedom fighter, for example.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
This is a paradox. So you can deal with these things as a terrorism, and the other countries dealing with these things as a freedom fighters. And this is the case we are facing right now for several years in the Middle East. There's some kind of countries, especially maybe in the Western cultures, they deal with some kind of acts like this is a freedom, and this is all us freedom fighters, like what happened in in Afghanistan and all those things. The freedom fighters, Iraqis were also freedom fighters, trying to free Iraq from different kind of things. Yeah, so there is different perspective in terrorism. So there is no agreed definition of terrorism on the international umbrella. And if we are going to cyber, some people don't understand also that cyber is connected to the Norbert Wiener 1948, if I remember correctly, cybernetics. Cybernetics is is a science of communications and all those things between human and the machine. It's big science. People need to go through and understand what the meaning of these kind of things. Norbert Wiener was really a brilliant guy. So, but at this time there was no internet. By the way, there was no cyberspace. Cyberspace as a term appeared in William Gibson novel Neuromancer in 1984. So you see, this cybernetic thing appeared at 1948, and this Neuromancer novel appeared at 1984. You see, this is some kind of I think people need to understand that there is something here. Anyway, William Gibson said that cyberspace is the matrix, and the movie, the Matrix movie story was some way of another built on the idea of the novel of William Gibson of the cyberspace matrix. And this is the space that's all communications and hallucination of minds is happening in this space, and it has some kind of social and economic and psychological domains inside one domain, which is the cyberspace. This is what's said in the Neuromancer and also in Matrix. And this is the science fiction, but in reality, cyberspace is real. Cyberspace, from if we take, for example, the US perspective of the cyberspace, we find that cyberspace, also the European perspective, by the way, people who defined cybercrime, talk this definition to define cybercrime. So cyberspace, for example, is based on layers. So you have the physical layer, the infrastructure layer. This is the physical layer, and you have also the logical layer, and you have the social layer. So that kind of layers in cyberspace. So this layers you can find many things that's happening in these layers. So at the social layer, you can find some kind of threats that happening in the social layer. You can find also threats happening on the infrastructure, threats happening on the logical layer, data, information, and all those things, software that's operating, and running on the physical space. So we need to say simply that there is some kind of very, very important connection between this cyber and the physical and the real world. So we have connections between the cyber and the physical thing. And this is also lead us to what World Economic Forum said about the fourth industrial revolution, the connection between the cyber physical systems and all those things. If we have all those things connected together, and we have this right now, we have also an Internet of Things, which is sometimes I say it's not Internet of Things, it's Internet of insecure things, Internet of zombies maybe. So anyway, so these kind of connections between the physical and the cyberspace, if we take the terrorism act in per se, something like attacking critical infrastructure that can cause harm or create fear in the society, based on political or religious ideology. Yes, we can consider this a cyber terrorism. But again, there is no agreed definition of terrorism at the international level. Also, there is no agreed definition of cyber terrorism. But we can understand, we can, estimate the things that can be considered cyber terrorism and the things that higher level than cyber terrorism that we can, take it to the upper level of cyber act of war. You see these kind of levels. Right. It's not easy to to be defined, and this is a very, very important issue in defining these kind of terms, because people don't understand the fundamental things of these kind of.
So you have touched a very, very interesting area. So here's a question leading on from what you just talked about. We'll come back to the other things.
Okay.
The fact that there is no common understanding of what a cyber crime is or what cyberspace itself is, the fact that the regulations, laws that are in place are not consistent, also means the corporate world is going to deal with it differently, all over the place. Also means the education system, people who are training them will train very differently. Right? Because I asked a simple question, that there is not a day gone by that we don't see. In fact, they don't talk about all the hacks. You know that and I know that, because you can't talk about it. The people where I've been enrolled, I could not talk about it. But there's more happening than I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
Yet you hear people talk about security, you see a conference on that, and I go, what the heck are you guys going on about?
Yeah.
It's not about it. But the problem is that we use that to sell tools.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I agree.
It's a marketing thing to buy my tool. And my view was, there has never been a silver bullet, never was, and there will never be.
Yes, will never be. I agree.
Because security is multiple layers of things that you do. It's right behaviors, it's right education, it's right awareness, and the right oversight. Oversight not intended to penalize people, but to understand, by the way, and the weakest link could be anywhere in the company, right? The government, wherever. Like what they're talking about with Twitter, some of the stuff they're talking about is they got into a couple of people, but we don't know that. Is at the moment some speculation, maybe some truth in it. We'll find out more if they're going to talk about it. But you saw with Facebook, but Facebook, unfortunately, the model of Facebook is to sell your information, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it was a mistake. We're knowingly taking your information and selling it. A lot of these guys are monetizing it, right?
Yeah.
And the government may not have got rules in place because either they didn't understand what the hell was really going on, or they feel, hey, this could be very good. We can use it to promote ourselves, right? So when you do that, you don't look at the problem side, right? You're looking at And so you can comment on all this. And the last one I'm going to add is you talked about Internet of Things. And what scared me was not too long ago, one of the well-known companies was talking about what they've done in the Internet of Things, how you can do stuff, and you can set up your coffee machine to go do this time, that time. And what they didn't realize, and I have a story from from somebody you might know well. They went out of their house and they've got monitoring cameras, right? From reputable people.
Yeah.
Somebody broke into their home and the jewelry and all the thing was gone. Okay. The question is, how would you know when I armed the alarm system and when I went out? The only way somebody would know it is the people who are providing a service, or because they were outsourced it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere knew. You take that one step further, we get telemarketing calls, not just in Canada, all over. You probably get it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? And it's coming from a supplier saying, buy my product. Now, why would somebody overseas in India be phoning me to sell me some stuff? Because it doesn't help him. But then I find out, oops, they're talking about selling services of a Canadian company, right?
Yeah.
They didn't come out of the blue. Somebody actually went to them and saying, by the way, under the laws, we can't make this call. Can you do that? Because if they didn't, where did the data come from? Where did they know all this information about that? So what this leads to, and the reason you can address is there are multiple layers. You talk about education, and that education either is there, awareness of the corporate world at the higher level, or it's not there, right? If it's there, then we have to be even more concerned that why haven't they done anything about it?
Yeah.
If it's not there, then we need to educate these people. And the role of security also becomes important because they don't have a seat at the table. I mean, the guys who are doing the work, right, every day, some of them are pretty good people, right?
Yes.
But they don't have control of what is happening in the environment because they're siloed, right?
Yeah, I was about to tell you.
Go ahead. Talk to that.
It's silos. Yeah. This is the case. The problem is the people who are working in the technical field, they understand more about technical things, and the people who are in the higher level, they are thinking of the all the things that you have just mentioned. They're thinking about money, profit, all those things, and they think about saving. They don't think about the technical things. They don't about think about the things that can affect their own, the reputation and the company reputation. If you see Twitter, something like this. If you got hacked, you will be, you will be the story in the news every day. So it's not easy, especially now in this era of the media all over the world. So you will be in the media. And this is very, very problematic for any company in reputation. And you will see that there is a lot of losses that will happen because of the company got hacked and it's now in the media. And this is one of also the problems in the Middle East when we talk about cyber attacks and its relation to the legal framework. Because by the law, by law, you have in the United States, companies need to to address the authorities that they have been hacked, and there is some kind of transparency and all those things that's going on in the technologies arena to tell people that there is some kind of breach of the data and all those things. In the Middle East, is different. There is huge breaches happen, but no one understands what's really happened, and this is problematic because you don't understand where is your data and how your data is used or utilized or even exploited in different things. So you need a proper law to control all those things. It's not only the law, but how can you enforce the law? Because sometimes you have the law and you don't understand how to enforce it, because there is some kind of problems to enforce the law. Is you don't have the expertise that's needed to even to draft a proper law at from the beginning. The second thing is how to enforce the law and train people who are enforcing the law as prosecutors, law enforcement. And this is happening to us when we are training people in the United Nations on things related to cybersecurity and cyber terrorism and cyber crime. There is some kind of problems in their own legal framework there is no definitions for cybercrime, for example. So how can you consider this act that's happening in cyberspace is cybercrime, or is it a cyber terrorism, or is it a traditional crime that's using technology? Because not everything happening in cyberspace is cybercrime, and this is also a challenge for law enforcement and also for the legal people who are dealing with evidence in these kind of cases, because you know sometimes they understand they call the traditional crimes that is cybercrime. It's not cybercrime, because the evidence in cybercrime is different when you are dealing with traditional crime. Maybe you can find additional evidence outside the cyberspace that can be something in assistant to the digital evidence you are dealing with in the crime. But this is not a true cybercrime. There's a difference in the level of understanding for those kind of things when we are dealing with law.
So you're addressing a couple of very interesting points. One is where somebody makes a mistake, right? Because they're not aware at all, or they misunderstand and do something because they believe the way they learned it, you do this, but the impact is something else. And the third one is where the person knows everything, but still does it, right? For the wrong reasons, right? So
sure.
And that's one of the big problems we have in the companies, is that sometimes because of the way they work or monitor, you talked about the enforcement, and I think you touched a very interesting area that I feel is true in corporate work, is you make somebody responsible, right? And saying, okay, like privacy commissioner in Canada, it could be whatever, it doesn't matter. So he's responsible to make sure the person's personally identifiable information is protected, but he doesn't have the enforcement authority. He can write you up, but he can't turn on, shut you down. He can't. So it's like having a policeman go there, catch you for speeding and saying you're a bad guy. I'm going to write you up, and you go, oh, hell with you, and do nothing, and nothing can happen. So it doesn't work like that. You can make people accountable, responsible, and that law has teeth, right? So you can do.
Sure.
And excuse me, when you do that, it works. So a lot of these things come around to 2-3 things: education. But one part that I'd like you to also comment on, and it's true on outsourcing on technology, and I can tell you that I thought this can't be happening now. If you recall, at one point in time in my career, I ran third-party processing for the financial institutions, right? And there was retail. That's why I was stunned at what had happened then, but I'm more stunned that I see it happening now, right? That time it happened, you could turn and say, oh, you're talking about 20 years ago, and so forth. And what I'm talking about is when you outsource or you buy something and the vendor does your implementation, okay? Like a lot of these tools, like even when you talk about the radar system and all sorts of stuff like that. So they come in, they do whatever the work, or for other large organizations here, they've outsourced overseas. When the contract comes up for renewal, what are they negotiating? They're negotiating the price.
The price, yes.
They're not talking about, hey, technology's changed, because the lawyer doesn't understand that, right? So he goes in saying, okay, he might get 3-4 things, and they'll say, we're going to hold you accountable and we'll do this and that. But everybody knows you can't transfer your responsibility to somebody else. The accountability is yours, right?
Sure.
So are you finding that problem over there? Because it's definitely a challenge in many countries. It's here too. Are you finding that problem? There are 2 parts. One, the education thing, but great detail, right? And then about the contract not helping at all.
The problem of education when we are dealing with these kind of threats, especially complicated one like cyber terrorism and also cyber war, you cannot find a proper degree, for example, or educational certificate or a professional qualification in different countries in the Middle East that can prepare someone to deal with these kind of new threats. You can find most of the things that's theoretical, that you don't understand what's going on in the real world. It's just theories in books, especially the written content in Arabic language. It's not that kind of of content that you can rely on to understand how things is going, because this kind of thing is not invented in the Arab countries. It's invented outside. So they need to to get these things, to understand it, to find some kind of proper terminologies to translate these things in the Arabic language in order to understand the definition in the first place. If you don't, I still emphasizing on this the definition. If people don't define the problem, they will not be able to deal with it. Because people need to understand what is the problem. So define the problem in order to deal with the problem. The problem is there is no proper education in these kind of things. So I think the gap is is going on, and it's becoming bigger every day because technology is accelerating, as you know. So I think the problem of education need to be addressed properly in our countries if we are if we are going to deal with these kind of new things and like cyber terrorism and cyber war. Because when we are dealing with departments in different departments in maybe in law enforcement and all those things in the region, we find that there is also a lack of capacity building programs for those kind of law enforcement to deal with even with the law applicable to cybercrime, and the cyber laws don't understand how the law is working. So they are the law enforcement and they don't understand how to enforce the law properly, because the law is not properly designed, because of the problem we discussed a couple of minutes, is that there is no clear definition of the things. I think this is kind of big challenge to our policymakers to emphasize on educational side of the problem.
I think you have made a very interesting point, that the people who are doing it or trying to execute that do not understand themselves what the challenge is. Perhaps because although they deal with the issues on the ground, they were not involved in making those policies or rules. Okay? The rules were made by somebody else. It's like in the internal corporate world, the person who sees the problem every day facing, they're the last guy you communicate with. When they should be the first guy you should communicate with. I was not trying to be funny, but when you said that the manuals are written in English and they don't understand, don't feel bad. The manuals are written in English here.
As they don't understand also.
So don't feel bad about that. The challenge is, and the problem is exactly because of what I said, is if you don't, I learned one thing in life, is that you don't have a stake in it. You were never involved in it. There was never, you were not communicating. You don't have an ownership of something you were not part of. So when they were building the solution, and I'd learned that a long time ago, that I would get people involved and saying, by the way, here, and they would come up and saying, yeah, but this might not work because of this. And, you sit down saying, interesting. Why did you say that? Right? So they would explain to you, and I can tell you not once, it's happened many times in my life, where people at the most junior level would turn around and tell me stuff. And I go, that's very interesting. So I used to make it a habit to, the old school of management by walkabout. We don't do that. You sit in ivory towers and you get, information flushed to you and everybody's sanitizing it. And I think we need to look at that again and saying, it's very nice to outsource. So outsource, we are identifying, is one of the problems, right?
Yes.
Because you're outsourcing for cost, but there's no training. But here's another one. Isn't there another bigger danger? And again, I saw this from the financial business, from banks when I was there, and even from the credit card standpoint, that we do background checks on people we bring into the company one time. One time when you're hired, they do it. But you don't know my financial circumstances have changed.
Yes, sure.
I am now more vulnerable now than ever before, because the bad guys know that this is a good time to start going people out of job, but they know They're still on the inside. They could lose a job. They will pay you some amount of money. We'll take care of this. Can you give us this information? And it could be deadly, that information. Because, right?
Yes, right.
Have you seen that type of thing or not?
Yeah, we have seen this even in the background checks in the national security, for example. So people change, especially when we were with the trouble with the Muslim Brotherhood in the government several years ago. So we had troubles with people who were in the government. So you don't even realize that some guys you don't understand that those guys was members of Muslim Brotherhood until the Muslim Brotherhood was in the government. So they did all the back checks of the national security back checks and all those things. But when they come to Ryan and Muslim Brotherhood, you started to find people who were members of the Muslim Brotherhood suddenly in the government, and you were not realizing that those people was members of the Muslim Brotherhood. So yes, it's happening everywhere, not also in the financial, even
absolutely, because what is happening is business about one. It's quite stunning. If you look at some of all the certificates that are different places, and I was commenting on this yesterday, saying if I wasn't personally involved heavily in this and we're learning every day because they're different challenge. What's the worth of that piece of paper over there? Because it was very good 30 years ago, right?
Yes.
But things have changed now. I kept up, and that's a problem. Just because I attend something. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, and this is what I was addressing when I was talking about the people who holding PhDs and they are lecturing at universities, because science is changing. You need to be. It's a lifelong learning process. So it's not like just yes, I had a PhD, but everything is changing. You need to change. So if you don't change, you will finish. So this is the formula.
Absolutely. And now there could be no either better time or worse time, whichever way, what side you're sitting on, because of COVID-19 didn't create the problems, but it exposed them.
Yes, exposed. Yes,
it exposed them and it made them bigger, right?
Yes.
So, what the weaknesses that were fault lines that were there now have been exposed, and you're looking at it, the World Trade Organization, this, that, and the other, some countries saying, "Oh, we can't give you this equipment," when in fact they got the raw material from us, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I mean, that becomes a problem. It's the question now. Every country has to step back and look at it and saying, "Hang on, this could be a problem." But cyber is going to be one of the biggest issues going forward.
Yes.
And on top of cyber, I put risk management. And the reason I put risk management there is if you don't understand risk management, you can't do a good job on cyber.
Yes, this is what I meant when I was talking about the open source systems and the closed system, and you need to manage the risk. You need to understand the risk at the first place. Yeah, sure.
And so what you got is I asked somebody last week, actually called me for advice, and young guy, and because I'm mentoring a lot of people, I'm involved with colleges and universities, and so he said, "By the way, I want to get into cybersecurity."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, why? First, what is your background, right? And why?" His background was somewhere else. I kept my mouth shut, and I just asked him questions. So what do you do? What did you do before that? Which one did you like? This, then the other. So he came back again to the end. And he said, "I want to do cybersecurity." I said, "Why do you want to do cybersecurity?" He said, "There's a lot of money in it." Right?
Yeah.
That was and a lot of people have gone in. In fact, people are holding conferences and making money because they think it is about making money.
Yeah, it's buzzwords everywhere. So.
It's a buzzword. Correct. It's a buzzword. Exactly. And they're saying, "Oh, cybersecurity," and you go do 2-3 things here, or you do a little bit in a silo. Unless you understand this.
Yes.
And guys like us who got this type of gray didn't happen because we were standing in the sun, right?
Yes.
We were making our mistakes and learning. But there are very good people out there.
Yeah.
But the corporate culture has to change. We need to understand who's the risk in the organization, who's not. Background checks are important. Knowledge, what do they understand? Yes. And take them along with you, right? It can't. It can't be about shareholder value. And you can't be doing something just to make money. You do it for the right reason, money will come, right?
Yes.
But if money is your front number one thing, you're going to fail sooner. You might make some money, but you will lose long term. So this is actually very interesting. I mean,
people sometimes don't understand. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but people sometimes don't understand that investing in cybersecurity is not about investing in tools.
Yes.
Because people understand that yes, we need to invest in cybersecurity, and we will buy this tool and this tool and this. No, this will create too much problem for you because you don't understand, your own problems. So you need to understand your own problems because, investing in cybersecurity is investing in all the layers we have talked about. Education, culture, process, technology. It's not one thing. It's not the tools. So you don't need the tool. One of the departments in one of the countries, I don't want to mention the country, but they discussed with us at the United Nations Terrorism Prevention Branch when we were delivering the training. They said we need a data mining system. So we said, oh my God. So you need what? See that we need a data mining system in order to counter the terrorism threat. So we started to think, what kind of data mining system you need to counter terrorism? Because data mining is a very complicated thing. It's also a buzzword, by the way. So people don't understand that it's like it's AI, data mining, and digital transformation, all those things. Yes, it's a buzzword, but you don't understand what the meaning of data mining. The second thing is, do you have the data at the first place? Do you have the data as a department, even as a government? You have the data. You have digital data in order to mine the data. You have databases. This is the level one. You should have a digital database in order to understand what's in this data and analyze this data, and we can get you a tool to make some kind of analysis and things like this. So I don't want to mention tool, but there is a lot of tools that can do this. But you should have data and database the first place. He said, no, we don't have database. Oh my God! So you don't have database, you don't have digital records, and you are looking for a data mining system. This is very, very strange.
Really? It is. It's very, very interesting. Where you touched about the tools, and we'll cover this last point, and then we'll let people hear all the wonderful stuff you're going to do in 2 weeks' time exactly. In
the
Wednesday, 29th, where you're speaking about cyber terrorism. So we'll let you take it all the way.
Okay.
But here's the point that I want to talk about. That we have got into culture of buying. You recall I mentioned that there were 18 tools, right? In this one really highly reputable organization, right? But then when we looked at it, we can say that was true of a lot of people because they create budgets each year. The corporate world creates budget for tools and cybersecurity and this one, that one, and then they unfortunately in the government we have another serious problem is that when the budgets are not spent, right, because they suddenly realize, 2 months ago and I got all this money, if I don't spend it, they won't give it to me, right? So last minute they're going, I got so much of evidence to show you, but to talk about, but obviously I'm not going to go there because it's true everywhere. It's the mindset. It's the mindset that if I don't spend this thing, I won't get it next year. So they go buy, they get invoices in advance, they do all sorts of stuff to get to spend that money. But what is happening? You're buying things you don't need. But I go one step further to what you just talked about. So I'm going to pick on that, which is absolutely 100%. You said you don't understand your own needs. What are you running around trying to buy something? Your example of data mining is classic, and I see that all the time, where they're out there because the vendor tells you, I got this beautiful shiny objects. If you buy this, your problem's going to get solved.
Yes.
But you don't understand that. You don't know your own needs. Why are you buying that? Right?
Yes.
And so we got in the culture that you don't have to come up because I've budgeted for it. The money is in the budget. If I don't spend it, I won't get it. So they spend it. I would like to see a culture where people streamline, get more efficient, remove the duplication, redundant stuff. And when they do that, if I'm the guy who's heading the company, I'll give you a bonus for doing those right things because you created savings. And anytime you want money, if you have a legitimate case, you will get the money. Yes. But they know that they don't have legitimate case for many of these things. So they go and spend money on, you can look at training. Training is, corporate world will tell you we spend $5,000 and $10,000 per person each year. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I said to them, why don't you show me exactly where you spend the money? Because we're talking about training being a big problem. Show me where you spend the money. This guy does the following job. You want him to understand this. Is there a way you spent the money? No, because you can't teach culture. Yes. Culture, people learn because the leadership does it, because they are mentored, and if you're just keeping your head above, barely above water, you don't have time to do those thinking, right?
Yes.
And that's so this business, I spent this money, and I go, no. I mean, their organization, they spend money on multiculturalism and pluralism here and all that, which means you have a particular religious holiday once a year. They'll give you, nice wine and cheese party, but for the next X number of months, nothing, right?
Yeah.
No, it can't be. It's you built that in. I use the word, you may have heard it, that bake it in, don't paint it on.
Right? Yes, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I call it, a parachute experiment. It's not inherited in the society. It's some kind of a parachute, something like this. So this will not work.
No, it won't work. So this has been a fantastic conversation, and you reminded me of a story that I think I have to tell here, and it's really worth it for anybody. I know it's already become longer, but they put monkeys in a particular environment where they were looked after. No bad thing, and they put sprinkler system and all that and the other. Then they hung up bananas, right?
Yeah.
So you may have heard, but I'll just repeat it anyway. It's interesting. So there's several monkeys are there, and when the banana was put up there, this monkey runs to get the bananas, and everybody eats that. So nothing happened. Next time this monkey goes up to get the bananas, because they love bananas, monkeys, right? They open this, not hot water, but warm water to make it uncomfortable. Starts to come down on all of them. So they didn't understand the first time. What happened?
Yeah.
Once he came down, this was over, everything stopped. Next day, he goes up to get the bananas. When they put the bananas up there, so after 2-3 times, all the other monkeys realize they're not stupid. After all, we came from the monkeys. So
this is a psychological experiment.
So what they did, they realized that every time this guy is going up to get the bananas, they're putting hot water on us.
Yeah.
So when the 4th day the monkey started to go up to get the bananas, the other one, all 6 others, pulled him down and beat him up, right? Because they don't want him to get the bananas. And when they stopped him, nothing happened. The water. So they realized that's what it is.
Yeah.
So they continued this. Every time the monkey would try, they would beat him up. So they said, okay, that experiment, we now know what's happening. Yeah. So they started changing one monkey each time. Each day, they would take one monkey out and put a new one who had nothing to do with this, right? Yeah. So this continued for 7 days, and they were learning that, water, every time this guy...
This is a learning theory, by the way. This is learning theory, because it's based on the Skinner box and Buffalo classical conditioning. It's a psychological thing.
Absolutely, but now here's the classic one. They talked all 7 of them out, right? No, 6 of them out, because now the water had stopped. They took out the sprinklers, completely gone, right?
Yeah,
and they kept replacing, and every time this guy would go up and they put the bananas, nobody would go up because anybody who went up, they would beat him up.
Yeah.
And that's how corporate world is working. What they've forgotten, they know the what. What is the, if somebody goes to pull him out, beat him up. But the why was because of the hot water. And the hot water is not there anymore. So why are you doing the what when the why is changing? That is what everything you talked about, right, today, if I was sum it up, and I mean, you can sum it up, goes to the fact that we do not understand what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
We don't define the problem. We don't understand the problem. So we're going at the solution. We've done it for a long time. You keep buying tools. Somebody's telling you, big company, reputable, if they're telling you buy a tool, if it's Twitter, it must be good. If it's Google, it must be good. No, why don't you step back and ask yourself, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And we have you want to summarize this thing, and then you pick it up at the conference, on summit, and talk to it in great detail. And you're going to explain the cyber terrorism and cyber.
We wanted really in the summit to to stress on the difference between those kind of cyber things, because there is huge problems in defining those things. So we to sum it up.
And what you leave with them with an idea, what should they do to protect themselves, right?
Yeah, to sum it up, I think the people need at the in the first place need to understand their own problems. So, and you need to understand that it's not technology is not a solution to all your problems. If you understand your problems, you need to go through a certain process. One of the most important things in this process is changing the culture of people who will be dealing with the technology before you buy the technology and before you implement the technology in anywhere you will implement it, even in the critical infrastructure. So you need to understand first your problem, define the problem, get people who will be dealing with solving the problem to be ready to solve the problem, and then bring the technology. So let the technology get at the end, not at the beginning. So don't look for the tools in the first place. Look for your people, for the culture, for the process, for the problems, define the problems. So this is something very important. The second thing is education. Education need to be, to be changing process. It's in the ever-changing process. It's not something like, yes, we have this curriculum and we will teach this curriculum for 10 years. No, this will not gonna work in the 21st century. This is something from the past. So we need to understand that education at the level of in dealing with technical things like information technology and cybersecurity and all those things, we give you the basics, but we need to understand also in this educational process that we need to build up a critical mindset when you are dealing with education. You don't feed people with information. This will not gonna work. Also, you need to build analytical mindset. You need to build the capacity of people to be a researcher, people to understand the holistic approach, not to understand the simple, very, very, very simple things. That because simple things you can find it in books and you can find it everywhere online. You need to understand how to connect the dots, because this is very important. And we faced these problems many times when we dealt with national security and law enforcement. There is a huge need for analytical mindset. There is a lot of tools that can analyze information, but if you don't understand what's analysis in the first place, you don't understand how to operate this tool, because you need this to be prepared first, not the tool. So please invest in education, and the education need to be designed specifically to meet the needs of the 21st century. And I think this is something also can be found easily in UNESCO initiatives, because I worked with UNESCO many times in designing some kind of things that's related to education and the culture in UNESCO for the 21st century. You can find some kind of skills that's needed by the 21st century in education. One of the things is to be creative, to build analytical mindset, communication skills, all those things. You see that technology is a part of the holistic approach. It's not the whole thing. It's part of the whole thing. So you need to look at the bigger picture, not only technology. So technology is one thing. If we are gonna lose ourselves to technology in the 21st century, I think we will face a lot of troubles that we don't be able to solve it with technology, because we will lose our humanity, we will lose our culture, we will lose our, society, we'll lose a lot of things that cannot be solved by technology. So I think we need to sit back and understand what the technology is going to solve in our society. What technology is going to benefit in our society? What's the side effect of this technology? Because technology is double-edged. So first, you need to define. Second, you need to prepare people. You need special education. You need education that meets the 21st century requirements. Also, you need people who are capable of drafting frameworks that's compatible with the requirements of the 21st century. You need policy to be compatible with the 21st century. And in this case, for example, because we are talking about cybercrime and the cyber terrorism and all those cyber threats around, I want to refer to some kind of very, very important document that's created in Estonia. It's the Tallinn Manual. The Tallinn Manual is applying the international public law to cyberspace. This is very important to how people are thinking in the area of cyberspace, or how to adapt the law to be applicable in something very complicated and intangible like the cyberspace. So we need more people who are thinking like this. We don't need more traditional people. We need, people who are thinking out of the box.
Lateral.
Yes.
You want lateral thinking.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it's fantastic. You left so much of food to think. This has been. I'm really glad you got me excited to make some of the points myself. But I think it's fantastic, and people should look forward to, because you can speak on the subject by yourself and do a damn good job. You made some very important points here.
Thank you.
And I think I'm excited, looking forward to hearing you on the 29th. And I'm sure a lot of people will be, as they will see this, they will understand that this approach that we have gone is not working. We need to take a step back, rethink all the things you talked about. So on behalf of, BIZTEK Professional Association of Canada, BTPAC, myself, I want to thank Dr. Mohamed El Guindy for a fantastic, call it fireside chat about this. And certainly register for the conference, and we're going to be even broadcasting. We'll give everybody a link. I think it's going to be also broadcast live in Middle East as well. You're doing that.
Yeah. We will broadcast it on our Facebook page and also YouTube, so it will be online.
So that's fantastic. Do register. You're fortunate. He's a person with many talent. If you wanted to see his bio, it's on our website. Trust me, he's not only just very well known, he's done some fantastic stuff. So
thank you very much.
Dr. Mohamed El Guindy, thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
It's an honor being with you.